Are you training for muscle or strength? How do you know if you're doing one and not the other? In a nutshell, these are the main difference between hypertrophy and strength training. When you train to maximize hypertrophy, the pool of exercises tend to be a bit larger. 2 to 4 lifts to overload each major movement pattern in the same training block seems to be a great starting point. When it comes to maximizing strength, however, variation must be narrower. The strength is lift specific, and thus you are better off prioritizing the lifts you want to get stronger at. The goal is not so much to overload general movement patterns, but rather to focus on those movements that will have great carryover to your target lifts. Another main difference is the nature of intensity. For muscle building purposes, intensity of effort is king. Since the key driver to hypertrophy is getting close to muscular failure in a set, a much wider rep range can be used. This also means that muscle building is inseparable from actively trying to fatigue the muscles, although there could also be other benefits depending on how you use training variables. For example, hypertrophy training is a more efficient training style to accumulate volume and thus produces lifters with better work capacity. Strength training is very different. Proximity to muscular failure is no longer the baseline on which to determine intensity, but rather the percentage of your 1 repetition max in a lift. The closer the intensity to your 1 rep max, the greater the carryover to your max strength output in that lift. Thus, strength training favors low rep sets. This training modality is therefore a more appropriate way to train if the goal is to express maximal strength in a lift or lifts on a given day. Contrary to hypertrophy, training for strength does not require getting close to muscular failure. In fact, muscular fatigue is an undesirable outcome that is discouraged most times to ensure that you can perform sets at very high intensities. And lastly, the adaptive response you get from both training modalities also differ, although they are not mutually exclusive. While hypertrophy training does a better job at producing structural adaptations, aka damaging muscle tissue to then rebuild it into larger fibers, strength training, on the other hand, promotes neurological adaptations, meaning that you are actively trying to teach your brain to get better at recruiting the existing muscle fibers to produce force in specific movements. In other words, you're trying to become more efficient in a lift. Like the video, subscribe, and ring the bell for anabolic gains. Peace.